it is I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on Vampire the Masquerade from the World of Darkness. I'm, of course, talking about the second edition of it. We're talking about the rules some more, and breaking down some more things with the rules and the setup that you will need to know about when playing in the game. So let's go into more of the basics, which I've been talking about. I'm going to extend a little bit from there towards the end of this episode, but basics nonetheless. Let's talk about some complications that your storyteller could add to the game. Now, the complications implies things that your storyteller will add in to break up the monotony, have a little bit more action, drama to the system. Things like this could be extended tests. An extended test is not an uncommon type of test to have. It basically says that you have to get a certain number of successes over a certain period of time in order to have success. So it's rather than just getting one success, like in a normal sort of test, you would have to get X number of successes. It could be 3, it could be upward of 20, though that's more rare. Now, when you're rolling, you can keep rolling, whether it's a period of time. Normally it's round after round, you're rolling to attempt to see how many successes you get. If you have a failure or a botch, your storyteller will determine what that really means. Most likely a failure is not going to result in anything necessarily bad. A botch might mean you might have to start over from scratch completely, just because you screwed up so much, or it might result in something bad while trying to do it. For example, climbing a tree might require an extended test, and if you botch it, you might fall down. Now, there are resisted tests. Resisted tests means I'm rolling against either another character or another NPC. That basically we're rolling usually the same test against each other and seeing who gets more successes. Now, you have to consider this way, is my roll, I'm not only going to be subtracting ones to see how many successes I get, I'm subtracting the successes of the person I'm contesting against that I'm being resisted by to find out how many successes I have. So if they manage to get more than me and I have some ones, it could cancel out all my successes. I have a failure, they would still have success. On the other hand, if they cancel enough out, I could still have a success that would make it marginally successful in this contested test, this resisted test. Now, you can actually have a resisted extended test. This would be doing something like, let's say I'm having an arm wrestling contest with someone. We're constantly going to be rolling against each other, and you might need a certain number of successes to get success and win at arm wrestling. So it would sort of be like, and they could, eventually sort of get some that would cancel out yours, and you might be going back and forth in this wrestling contest till someone wins. Now, you can have teamwork when it comes to dice rolling. When this occurs, it means that one or more players are rolling each of their own dice pools and putting their successes together. Now, this works in most situations, but there might be certain situations where working together might actually be a detriment. Teamwork, it depends on the circumstance. Like if two of you are working to repair a car together and you're working in different areas of the car that has damage, you're team working for this extended test to fix a car. On the other hand, in social situations, usually it's pretty bad to work together, because if one person is really good at talking and one person is not, they can actually hinder the progress. Now, there is a golden rule. The golden rule is really that there is no real rules to Vampire. I'm not going to say there isn't things written down in this book and things I'm not talking about. But what it really means is that the story is the most important thing when it comes to Vampire. That your storyteller has free reign to edit and remove rules as needed for the story. And your storyteller will most likely explain to you when something is going on. It shouldn't be that the storyteller just does it and you don't understand what's going on. It should be that your storyteller will inform you, something comes up in the game, and during that, when that comes up, your storyteller might need to alter something just to make it make sense according to the story, or to allow you to do something that, like a rule, would drop out just to make it more cinematic. More of a story you'd enjoy to play in, without bogging it down with the rules. So that's what it is. It's telling you, don't bog down the game with rules, especially in this one. That you want to have it very flexible. Now, in the section of the book I've been talking about, they do have a list of game terms. And actually, most of them I have gone over. These are the important game terms, if you want to look over them yourself. But I've talked about 95% of these already and brought them up and sort of used them in context so you understand what they are. But they are very good terms to know what they mean and using it. It talks about things like successes and stuff. Anyway, let's move on to talking about a few things and breaking down some parts of your character I haven't talked about as much and telling you the rules on those more. That's what I'm going to finish up with today's episode. I'm only going to talk about a few right now, humanity and willpower. But let's talk about humanity. Humanity has some things that it represents. I've only briefly mentioned humanity and talked about it a little bit, but humanity does have some in-game effects too. First off, it affects your appearance. The less humanity you have, the more beast you look. The more humanity you have, the more human you look. It means that if I'm very low humanity, I might have an appearance that is, unusual. It would affect my social situations because I have such a low humanity. On the other hand, vampires are deep sleepers. Okay, that's the first thing you have to know. So, should you be woken up during the day, it's difficult to do. But when it happens, you have penalties. It's hard for you to act during the day. The number of dice pool you can have maximum cannot be greater than your humanity. So if let's say I have a humanity of 6, if I'm awake during the day, for whatever reason, I can only roll up to 6 dice on any test I'm making. I couldn't roll any more. So if I should happen to have 8 dice normally on a test, I would be reduced to 6 because that's my humanity. So your humanity sort of limits your dice pool in this way. Now your humanity also affects when you're using virtue chances to attempt to prevent yourself from frenzying, from getting caught up in the beast. It actually also limits those checks too. You're limited by the number of dice. You're limited again by the amount of humanity you have. So it's another situation where maybe I have a lot of dice to resist the beast, but unfortunately since my humanity is low, I can't roll all those dice. I'm limited by my humanity, how much I can roll. So the less humanity you have, the easier it is for you to frenzy, to give in to the beast. While the more humanity you have, it doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it allows it to be easier. Yeah, did I think of it that way? Now, the last thing about humanity I do want to mention, I'm going to go into more details about this later, but the main way to lose humanity, other than frenzying and things like that, is that you lose humanity when you go into torpor for any extended period of time. I will explain torpor a little later, but it's something that your vampire can fall into, usually as a defensive mechanism to horrible things happening to your character. And you sleep there. It's basically like a super vampire sleep that could go on for years, centuries, sometimes even millennia. They have rules for how that affects your humanity. The longer you're in torpor, the less it gets. Now I want to move on to talking about willpower. Now your willpower does have a few normal uses. The first and main use of it is you can get an automatic success. You can only use this use of willpower once a turn. So it means, no matter how much, whatever I'm doing, if I'm, somehow I'm like using celerity, getting extra actions, I can only ever spend 1 willpower for 1 automatic success on my turn. Now there is other uses of it. Things could happen where your storyteller will have, instinct or primal urges take over you, or like some kind of feeling deep inside that you do some kind of action as a reaction to something. Maybe you don't want to do that, like your primal urge might protect you from a situation that maybe it's not good to be protected against it. At that point in time, this is going to be very story related, and you can spend a willpower to basically ignore what the storyteller is saying, to basically have free will of your character in this moment where instinct normally would have taken over. Similarly, you can actually spend willpower to ignore derangements effects. Derangements, Malkavians start with one that they can't get rid of, but all your characters get them. It's, a bit of insanity, and even Malkavians get more of them. But, again, granted, they have the one they can never get rid of. But if you should have a derangement for whatever reason you've gotten one, you can spend willpower to basically ignore its effects. And eventually, if you keep spending willpower, you can overcome the derangement and cure yourself of it. The amount required depends on the derangement and depends on situations too. You would figure this out with your storyteller. Now, you do regain willpower, but it's not regained as easy as you'd think. The first point you regain it is at the end of a story. What that means is you're not regaining it after every session, you regain it at the end of a story. As I talked about before, a story is like a single mission or a single adventure all together that you might spread over multiple sessions. So when the entire story is done, you would regain all your willpower that you spent. On the other hand, there are 2 optional points where you could possibly regain your willpower. There could be special success times, when something successful happens within the storyline that maybe it's very important to your character that the success happened. It could give you willpower back. It would be a point in time where, you know, you did something that reinvigorated your character. This is, again, both of these, this is optional, and this other one I'm going to talk about, which is doing something related to your archetype. When you're diving into what your archetype was, when I talked about that before for regaining willpower, if you did something equaling into that, there's the possibility that you could use that to regain willpower also. Again, both of those last 2 are optional, and your storyteller will let you know. Basically, your storyteller will give you the chance. It might not always come up anyway. It might be special circumstances for when your storyteller wants it to. So don't guarantee that if your storyteller does it one time that they'll do it again. They'll do it as needed. Again, it's similar for the golden rule, which I talked about. You know, there's a flexibility to the system, and it's more than likely when you're going to do something not just related to your archetype, but something deep to your character too. Your storyteller will grant you your willpower back. But anyway, that's it for today. I've gone over a little more about like the basics, rule structure, and playing the game. Some other types of tests that you can do. I talked a little bit about some of the stats on your character sheet. Next time I'm going to finish out talking about them. I'm going to talk about your blood pool and your health, and then I'm going to move into talking about some of the systems that there are in place, getting into things like combat and stuff in your vampire games. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. It shows support for the channel, for the Empire, shows support for my work. Please subscribe if you already haven't. We're always looking for more members, more citizens, and it's another great way of showing your support for the channel. And please share this video if you know anybody that would learn anything from it or would just enjoy watching it. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.